Hello and welcome. Court Vision is back in session. We don't have a thing yet, but eventually I'm going to have something that goes there so that pause makes more sense. Until then, you guys get an awkward pause.
That won't get us sued by Law and Order because you know that's going to be my immediate first suggestion in post.
Yeah. No post editing outside of that last episode where there was one post editing. That it's very noticeable if you watch the video, people. So comment down below if you know where it is and what was edited out. That is one of your assignments for the day. Let me stop playing with these dice that are in my hands. All right, we are wrapping up and concluding our divisional predictions with our favorite, the Atlantic. Well, it's not Tommy's favorite, but it's our favorite. Mongo, Kevin, and myself. That's who else is here, and of course our good friend Tommy. We are kicking it off with everyone's favorite north of the border team, the Toronto Raptors. Kevin, this is your home country, so let's start with your predictions. What's your wins? What's your losses for your home Toronto Raptors?
Well, first off, I was not born in Toronto, but anywho, I want to just make sure you guys are aware.
Well, the Grizzlies don't exist in Vancouver anymore.
Yes, I know that as well, but just as a reminder to the readers and the viewers out there. Anywho, just so everyone knows, the Toronto Raptors last year finished 25-57. I had them going this year 26-56. Not really convinced that anything they did in the offseason merited a whole lot of improvement, and I just happened to give them a one-game improvement just for kicks. Take it away.
So I had them actually at 25-57, and then I needed to adjust my wins today. So I took 2 wins from them and knocked them down to 23 wins. I don't think that they made anything, did anything too meaningful. Whether it's 23, 25, 27 wins, to me, it's all the same. It doesn't really make a big of a difference. It just, the wins need to be added to certain teams. And that's where my decision came from. Mongo?
If you notice that I set up the spreadsheet so that when we did our guesses, we tried to have an equal number of wins and losses total, so that when you add all the teams' wins and loss records that we predict, that they all add up to 1,230 wins and 1,230 losses. That's where those win adjustments may have come from.
Let's go to Tommy next because I'm going to go a little rogue with mine.
Okay, so this one's a very ambitious take. 27-55.
Okay, so it literally in what I said of there's no difference between 23 and 27 when it comes to this team. Okay,
so ambitious.
Well,
I mean, what do they got? Scotty Barnes.
So here's the thing. I'm with you, Kilroy. On paper, there's not much of a difference until you look at it this way. I initially had them at 26 wins and the Nets at 25. I think we're all going to the Nets next. If I had to take a guess, we all have the Nets down there too. I switched them last minute solely out of respect for the Nets and disrespect for the Raptors. I think on paper, the Raptors are actually the better team. Quickly, Barrett, Barnes, the whole deal. But if you look at Kilroy, for those who don't know, Kilroy is a big fan. I'm going to PG it up, don't worry, of go or get off the pot, right? That's a phrase he's a big fan of. And when you look at the Raptors since in the last 3 seasons, since the summer of 21, they've been going a lot. But the problem is there is no direction on this team. Summer of 21, they completely unload Kyle Lowry. It looks like the rebuild is officially upon us. They come back around to February 22, they give up a first rounder just to unload Goran Dragic. That ends up becoming Malachi Branham for your Spurs, by the way, Tommy. And so now it's, now you're saying, wait, what's going on here? Fast forward to the next February and Jakob Poeltl gets bought. They're now complete buyers all of a sudden in a pick that eventually becomes Rob Dillingham this draft. Again, good work there by your Spurs, Tommy. And now you're saying, well, wait a second, are they buyers? That leads to the summer where they decide to keep Poeltl over Van Fleet. Now nobody knows what they're doing. You flash forward to December of last year, they move on from Siakam, they move on from Anunoby, and okay, fine, the sale was officially upon us. We get to the deadline, and they give up a first rounder to get Kelly Olynyk. and Agbaji,
Limit.
and that pick turns out to be Isaiah Collier. There is no direction to this team over the last 3 seasons. They just have to just let it go, let those 3 guys start to cook, figure out what you're doing with the rest of the veterans on this team, and bottom out. And so my hope for this team is actually 25 is way too high. I would love to see them just completely give up, because this team has been an absolute disaster of misdirection for the last 3 years. So I put them at 25, even though I think there might be enough raw talent to win a few more. But out of respect for this franchise, I don't want them to win more. I want them to stink this year. They need to stink. They need to pick a direction.
Mongo, what
This
number
reminds
would
me
you
of
want
what
them
we
to
were
be
talking
at
about.
then?
I would love them to go 1-81. No team deserves to go 0-82, but they need to bottom
This
out.
reminds me of a team we talked about 2 weeks ago, the Chicago Bulls.
Same exact idea. The reason that teams like Detroit. Remember, next week when we do our superlative show, I just want everyone to say who they have as the 10 seed, because you'll finally realize what I've been saying all along, which is the 9 and 10 in the East. Someone's going to get in there by complete accident. And the reason why teams like Atlanta, teams like the Nets are at least teams like Detroit, you can at least believe in a world where they're fighting for the 10, because there are teams in this conference that don't even have direction, that don't even have a plan. When 10 of 15 teams make it and 3 teams, sorry, Charlotte, Toronto, and Chicago, don't even seem to be able to tread water correctly, the odds are really in your favor. You're accidentally going to make at least the play-in tournament. So, you gotta kind of take the entire East with a grain of salt. That, the first couple rounds of the playoffs are a bit of a formality.
Would you be mad if the Toronto Raptors trolled your statement and made the play-in?
No, because I really do believe 33, 34 wins can make the 10 seed this year. And that's, again, I had them, what I feel on paper is a little low at 26, because I didn't like their strategy from the beginning. If I just ran this entire season through, NBA 2K, they could be a 29-30 win team on paper. Add in the fact that, like I said, 33, 34 will get you there. They're not far off. I just think it would be really dumb for any of these teams that, are still kind of collecting. The only team that really should make a run at the 10, if it's, within sight, Atlanta should, because, they've clearly got a bunch of veterans on that team. And it would be nice if I'm Detroit, I'm making a run for that 10 at all costs. But if I'm Washington and I'm even sniffing the 10, I'm unloading any veteran on that team that will fetch me a second. If I'm the Nets, even, I would be willing to unload. I'm definitely unloading if I'm Toronto, Chicago, or Charlotte. But again, it's more about what I would do for long-term health than what I think can happen, because I don't think you need to do a lot to accidentally be the 10 this year.
A team tries to lose and then they fall into the 10th seed. I'm going to laugh at that one.
It's possible. I mean, look at just later on. Here's an assignment for everyone at home. Later on, make a power ranking and see how low you have the 6th worst team in the East. You probably have them in your bottom 10. You might have them in your bottom 7 or 8. That team's making the playoffs, guys. That team is going to the play-in, and they could easily be ranked somewhere between 21 and 24 in your power rankings. It's a really bad bottom half of the East, and unfortunately, 2/3 of it gets to at least get into the tournament in some capacity.
Well, somebody's got to make it by accident.
Absolutely.
On to the Brooklyn Nets. Tommy, with your background, what's yours for the Brooklyn Nets?
Let me start this off by saying, right now, I don't think I know a single player that's on this Brooklyn Nets team. It just goes to show what I think of this team right now. That said, I have them over Toronto. I have them going 30-52, but that's just by sheer fact that the East kind of sucks.
All right. And Mongo, you were saying you had them at how many wins?
I have them at 26, and that's only because I think they're going to, A, waste a whole lot of time trying to figure out rotations, and B, I think at least Dorian Finney-Smith eventually gets moved. Bogdanovich is a great candidate to be moved. Cam Johnson even will get some looks at the deadline. And so any momentum they find by January or February can just be completely erased at that point. So since there's a chance that they're basically playing a different team for the first 50 games in the last 30, this is a team where we always talk about it every week, Kevin. I say it, you stole it from me last week, but this isn't a power ranking. This is a win-loss game in terms of power ranking, and especially power ranking by franchise, right? Who's in the best direction. I have the Nets way higher than their win-loss record reflects. I also really, really like what this team is doing on paper to a point where if the pieces start to click, for those who haven't watched our show before, I'm the only one here who talks about betting pretty much for the most part. And I a lot of times give you sneaky tips for betting. I'm going to go the other way. I don't care what the net over under is. I would stay away from it. This is a team that you could not convince me to bet the under, because if things click, there's a lot to like about this. I mean, when you look at this team, Cam Thomas, only 23. Noah Clowney, only 20. Day'Ron Sharpe, about to turn 23. These are all guys who were drafted between 20 and 40 for the Nets. So they're drafting healthy in that sort of late first, early second round where the Knicks were having success for a while that helped turn their team around because they finally had some movable assets. I actually really, really like it. I don't know. He's not even a lock to make the team, but bringing in Killian Hayes to be under the tutelage of Dennis Schrader, I think is genius. Two very overrated coming out foreign point guards who probably get more slack than they deserve because of their draft status. Those two guys can find company together. Zaire Williams and Killian Hayes, both top 10 for all accounts busts who are going to get a second chance on this team. Trendon Watford, that dude had 27 in a game for Portland a couple years ago, and somehow he's only 23, and he's been an 8-4 guy the last couple years. So there's a lot to like about this team. And to me, the reason to be super cautious, they have all these young guys. They go out and get Jalen Wilson in the early to mid second round. Dude's turning 24 this year. He's older than all those guys I just mentioned. For them to go out and use a second-round pick on an NBA-ready small forward instead of going out and either getting a European stash who's a couple years away or the best college high upside college freshman means they believe they've found their core. They're ready to put Jalen Wilson in as that sort of 9th, 10th man, the piece they were missing from this rotation, and they're going to roll with it. They're not going to make the mistake they made 5-6 years ago, develop talent, and then try and trade it away for a run at the goal like they did with Harden. So I love what this team is doing. This team seems committed to a lot of young, strong talent they have. I'm buying into it. If I'm a Net fan, I'm very excited. I just think because they're going to spend way too much time trying to oversell their veterans to be able to trade them, this team is not going to see its true potential for another year or two.
Kevin, where do you got them?
I have them at 28-54. I also can't name a person on the Nets roster, but prior to this episode, but I think they're gonna win a couple more games than the Raptors by accident somewhere along the line. So that happens. This also happens to be my only other sub 500 team in this division.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is also my only sub 500 team in this division. I graded much harsher than you guys did on this team because I think this team wants to lose. I think that their desire to not be good this season is going to get them what they want. Not in terms of draft pick, because draft selections, you got the lottery, so you really
the lottery is good.
But I just don't see this team being great. And maybe I'm just a little bit harsh on the total of wins. I have them at 18 wins. They had 32 last year. That is a pretty big drop off from last year. But I don't know. I just don't feel confident in this team. I do feel they are better than the Wizards. I don't know if I have more wins for them or the Wizards. But either way, I don't feel that this team is designed to try to win. I do think that, like Mongo said, they are going to showcase their vets to try to get whatever draft capital that they can for them. And, similarly to how the Knicks were when they were picking up a bunch of washed up first round busts. And it doesn't work out. There's I'm trying to think of a single first round pick that the Knicks took a flyer on that worked out. Former top 10 pick, that ended up working out. I can't really think of any that, but I could be wrong. But
I think the one major difference here is the 2 first round, for all counts busts they're taking a flyer on. Killian Hayes just turned 23. Zaire Williams spends the entire season at 23. I mean, these are busts because they started at age 18 and, wherever Zaire started, 20, 21, whatever, as opposed to, whereas, like when Michael Beasley came to the Knicks or whatever, he was already, 29, 20, 30. God only knows how old he was. Derrick Rose, came towards mid to end of the career. There's a difference between let's see if we can relight the fire and let's see if there ever was actually a fire there. Also, if you're a Net fan out there and you don't believe in the future of this team, please come fight me in the streets. You're wrong. You're just dead wrong. But if you're looking for some reason to be optimistic this year, Kilroy, just to kind of contradict your point, Day'Ron Sharpe's per 36 last year was stupid. And so if they do move from some of those forwards, Finney Smith gets moved, Bogdanovich gets moved, and Sharpe is just eating minutes at the end of the year, that could be really good from just a counting stats-wise standpoint. And secondly, remember, Cam Thomas was not necessarily supposed to be what he is, which is a very, very good player. And it was really only because he got an opportunity that he was even as good as he was. Well, now, again, just because there's no one left from trading Bridges, there's really nobody left to not, to eat from his, minutes. So we don't really know what Cam Thomas's ceiling is. He's always just been limited by the fact that he wasn't supposed to be unlimited. So, you have a little bit of faith in Cam Thomas. I personally have more faith in Day'Ron Sharpe's ceiling being unknown than Thomas's. But you do have some guys there where you don't know where the ceiling is. Also, thank you, Kevin, for that stat. I'm pretty proud of myself there. I was pretty close on Beasley. Beasley was 28 when he joins the Knicks, says Kevin.
I didn't mean Beasley, but yes, I do understand what you're saying. The Knicks is the former first round picks the Knicks did get were older when they got them. I do understand that. I'm just not confident in this team. I don't think that. I think that they're jumping in. They have a new coach again, who again I don't believe he has much experience as an NBA coach. I don't know. I just don't feel confident in this team. And you know what? As I've said before, I don't like the Nets, and I want them to do poorly. Anytime the Nets do poorly, it makes me happy.
I'll tell you though, if the Nets can somehow end up high enough in a lottery in the near future and get a point guard to solidify, the rest of the lineup has talent, young talent ready to go. I'm with you, Kilroy. I don't believe Killian Hayes is the answer. I think he's a fun name to see in the summer. But the rest of the positions, there's definitely somebody there that you're at least intrigued by, to a point where if they could get a young point guard to build up with this team, with Sharpe, with Clowney, with Claxton, with Thomas, we named them all. This could be a pretty fun team to watch for a while. But so you want them to be bad, but maybe not that bad, because you don't want that pick to you don't want that point guard to come in organically through the draft too easily.
To answer your question,
I'm just confident the Nets will make the wrong pick. On to the 76ers. I have the 76ers improving from 47 wins to 50 wins. I do think that Paul George is going to be a difference. They don't have James Harden anymore. They didn't have him last year for most of the season, but it took time to move on from him. I do, Embiid is still, one of the best centers in the league when he's, healthy and playing. Obviously, a lot of this is, important. Health is important for the Sixers team. This team is filled with players who don't like to stay healthy. So
and they added another guy who doesn't like to stay healthy.
If there's an Achilles heel to this, it's their Achilles heel. So hey, maybe 50 might be too high. I like this division, so I have 3 teams going above 50 wins.
Yeah, we know you like this division.
Yeah, I mean, I have I like the Sixers team. I don't expect this team to do anything, because this team is just not up. They just don't. They seem to lack confidence once they get to the playoffs,
specifically the second round.
Right. So we'll see what happens when they get there. But as it is, ignoring injuries or potential injuries, I have the Sixers going 50 wins. Tommy, what do you have the Sixers doing?
I actually have them going down a couple wins. I have them only winning 45. I admit that's a little bit of a low ball. I just don't have faith that Embiid and George can stay healthy enough of the season to win 50 games. On paper, this team is really good. It's starting to look like a retirement home.
Sorry,
All right, Mr. Giggles.
making me laugh.
Mr. Giggles, what do you have them doing?
All right, I also have them at 50 wins, but for a little bit of a different reasoning. I think even though I believe George and Embiid will not stay healthy, I think by accident they're gonna win a fair number of games just because there are teams in the East that are trying to lose. So I think when you combine that, they're gonna stumble on some accidental wins along the way. So I believe that they'll hit 50 wins.
Yeah, so I left them at 47, and that's pretty much solely out of protest for this dumb game. I have them as a serious contender to win it all. If you told me right now, either bet that the champion comes out of the Atlantic Division or it doesn't, I would tell you I would take the Atlantic Division over the field. I'll give you the other 25 teams in the NBA. I'm that confident in Boston, New York, or Philadelphia. I do think there's a chance Philadelphia tries to straight up 90s Rockets this thing and just coast into the playoffs, knowing that health is going to be above all everything else. I don't think you can overlook the fact 25 total all-star appearances on this team, 5 different guys with all-star game experience. One guy getting hurt, even 2 guys getting hurt is there's still all-stars all over the place. My one big concern about this team is that we talked about it, over the last couple of weeks. Cleveland, I called them a novelty act when they got as big as they did a few years ago, and the East has started to catch up, right? Miami now has 3-4 true bigs. Boston, has basically forwards all over the place. Milwaukee runs itself through 2 forwards. There's more forwards than guards, in terms of depth in the East, other than teams like Atlanta, and we see how that works out for them, right? The Sixers have done a really good job. Eric Gordon, Kyle Lowry, and Reggie Jackson as your 3 guards off the bench is pretty fantastic. But the problem is, as currently constructed, their backup forwards are KJ Martin and that kid Yabusele, who had the really good Olympics, but we really know nothing about him. That's a dangerous depth behind Paul George. And so if the French kid comes over and he can contribute and surprise the way he did in the Olympics, all of a sudden this is a completely different dynamic. Or if they make one more trade or one more addition to add, and I'm not saying it would be this guy, but a PJ Tucker type player that you can trust to put in those minutes. I think Robert Covington is actually still out there in free agency after being on this team last year. Somebody of that nature. I think they're a bench forward away from me believing in them more. So since A, because I hate this win-loss game versus doing power rankings, and B, because I think I'd give this team grade an I at the moment, and one of the few I would, because I think that backup forward is so important. I'm going to basically leave them right where they are for the same reason you can't bet on a game with an unknown injury. I'm just going to keep them right at 47.
I think that whatever happens to the Sixers, we're not going to find our answers in the regular season. All the answers are going to be in the postseason and how well they do or don't do, aka Mr. Tobias Harris there. Played that egg last year.
I agree with that. I agree with that completely. This team could go 81-1 and lose in the first round, and it'll be considered an object failure. This team could go 40-42 and win it all. And they'll put up a statue of Paul George. This is a championship or bust team for sure.
Fair enough. Let's move on to Jeff's favorite team, the Boston Celtics. Mongo, what do you got the Celtics doing?
So I have the Celtics at 56 wins. Kevin, what's their number from last year? Is it really 64? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was. And so I would actually have loved to put them lower. I feel like they're A, too proud of a franchise, B, too smart of a franchise, and C, too deep of a team to let this get too far out of hand. If they really start dropping back from last year's pace, they'll do something. But I'm a little worried about Porzingis' health. I'm a little worried about the hangover, which seems to be real more often than not. And I'm a little worried about how many of these guys played in the Olympics. You should have a fairly tired team from how involved in the Olympics. You had Tatum, White, and Holiday all there. And then you also had Tatum running his mouth about not getting enough time on the Olympic team, which, by the way, I'm sorry, I'm with Steve Kerr on this. You had guys on that team who have played with way better, no offense to the Celtics, but have played on big threes before, have played with way bigger superstars. That's why those guys were out there, not because they were better players, but because they knew how to play with stars better. So Tatum, shut your mouth. But you also had Jaylen Brown claiming that Nike's conspiracy against him is why Derek White got the Olympic spot over him. So you have a bunch of guys who are going to come out with Olympic chips on their shoulder. And here's the problem. When your team is made up of 5 all-stars, you can't come out and say, I'm the stud of this team. I'm going to play like I have nothing to lose. That's why we talk about, what have we talked about for the last, 15 to 20 years? Big threes. We haven't talked about big fives. Why? Because you need to be a true team to be that deep, like the 03-04 Pistons. If this team cannot stay cohesive, that can be major trouble, not just for the regular season, but for the playoffs. And with Brown and Tatum both coming in naturally on happy, Holiday being tired and 1 year older, and Porzingis being shaken up, and Horford being ancient too, there's a lot not to like about this team. Out of respect for how deep and how good they are as a team, I kept them at 56, but this is another team I'd be way inclined to want to take the under on, because I'm very scared of all the question marks behind the scenes.
Kevin, can you tell us how old Porzingis is? And while you're doing that, Tommy, give us your wins and losses.
I have them winning this division with 60 wins. I really think that this team is as good as advertised, and while yes, the Olympics might hinder them a little bit, and yes, I am a little highballing it a little bit here, I just have a lot of confidence that this team can deliver again.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Okay, so he's not even 30. I also have them at 60 wins. I think that, this team is obviously, you're not going to get 64 wins. I think 60 is the higher end of that scale in terms of wins, especially with the Knicks, the Sixers, even the Nets in the division are probably going to, eat up more wins. I know I had the Nets at 18, but anyway, Mongo convinced me otherwise, but as per usual.
Sorry. Continue. Sorry.
I like the way this team is constructed in terms of the players that they have and their coaching. I think that the chip on their shoulder mentality is not going to work this year like it did last year for them, because you can't really have that chip as the defending champion. I mean, you can have it, but it's entirely manufactured, right? Like, this team just won the championship. Other teams are not going to be playing them down. They ended up having a relatively easy path to the finals. Relatively, obviously, no path is easy, but they ended up playing the Pacers, who played a beat up Knicks team, and that made it a lot easier for them. And the Knicks, got beat up pretty bad by the 76ers, which made it difficult. If the Celtics had to face the 76ers, we're looking at a totally different championship team that won the championship. And I'm not saying that the Celtics necessarily wouldn't have gone to the championship. I just don't think they would have been able to win it had they played the teams like the Sixers, or the Knicks, and not just the Pacers. Who did they play in the first round? They played like ancient Miami Heat, right?
Let me look that up.
So I think, and Butler was beat up too. So they had a relatively luck was in their favor, and that is part of the game, right? You need that in order to win a championship. So I'm not trying to take that away from them. They earned this championship. I think we have a chip on our shoulder going into this season is not going to fly as much. Teams are going to have are going to give them their best even more. And I think 60 wins is on the higher end, but I did give them 60 wins. Kevin, wrap us up with the Sixers. The Celtics, so we can talk about the best team in basketball.
All right, I'll cover the answer to your question. The Celtics played the Heat, the Cavaliers, and the Pacers in that order on their way to the title, on the way to the finals. All right, so the biggest thing, I think I gave them 62 wins, the Celtics. It's still lower than last year. I didn't think they were going to get 64 wins, but the reason I have them still as high in the 60s is because I think that the the Olympic experiences of Tatum and the non-Olympic experiences of Brown, I think they're going to find a way to draw extra motivation from that. You say it's out there. It's not likely, but I do think there's a very strong possibility that if anyone can draw inspiration from their experiences or non-experiences, as in the case of Jaylen Brown, I think Tatum and Brown can do it, and I do believe that they're gonna keep their foot on the gas pedal and get 262 wins. Not only that, but even now there's going to be a little bit of drop off, 64 to 62. But I do believe with just enough teams not having enough talent, or in some cases just trying to lose outright, I think they'll hit 60 wins fairly easily. So that's why I put them at 62, and they are my division winner.
So first of all, to clarify, they're my division winner too. Sorry to the Knicks in advance. And before, I'm clearly the most anti-Celtic one here in terms of their potential this year. And before Celtic fans come at me here, just a quick reminder: if they won 44 wins in my imaginary world here, they'd still be the 5 seed, and they'd get a path where they get to play the Pacers, then the Knicks, who they're a little bit deeper and definitely a little bit bigger and and can compete defensively with, and then they get the Sixers. So it's still not a terrible path, no matter where they end up in the East. So before you get on your high horse, Celtic fans, I wouldn't worry. This is another team I wouldn't worry about wins and losses with. But with that being said, Kev, the only reason I got to disagree with you here, listen, we're all American, when it comes to the Olympics, right? All of a sudden, the whole NBA is friends, and the media was covering it as Jaylen Brown wanted Kawhi Leonard's spot and felt he deserved it. That's great, but when we get to the nitty-gritty of the NBA, where everyone's happy to trash each other, here's the actual narrative. Jaylen Brown felt he deserved the spot that went to Derek White. If it went to anybody else, yeah, okay, I'm with you. He came out and said, I'm better than my teammate. I deserve that spot. The only reason it was, treated as Kawhi Leonard's spot is because we tend to go, name a time that there was a trash piece on somebody in the Olympics, right? We try to be friendly in the Olympics. But when it actually comes time for teams to start kind of analyzing what happened there, if the media decides to cover that story, and again, I think it's best for the Celtics to just forget it. If Tatum keeps his mouth shut, if Brown keeps his mouth shut, if they can tread water until Porzingis gets fully healthy and Horford and Holiday can avoid showing their age, I think that's better for him. Not only do I think it's hard to have a chip after you win the ship, I think it's better for them to not have a chip on their shoulder. They need to basically hide this year because this team is not built to be the hunted. They need to just lay low if they want any shot of winning back again.
And that's why I disagreed with that point, because I thought that the extra motivation from their experience, non-experience could help them out when they need it. That's why I disagreed with your point.
Gotcha.
Fair. Let's wrap this up with the good old New York Knicks. Tommy, because this isn't your team, you're going first. Give us your wins, losses. Then we're going to go around the horn.
I guess I'll be the one to start spreading the news. I have the Knicks winning 54 games. And
okay.
I honestly could see it going higher than that. I'll let you guys take the floor because this is your team.
They went 50 wins last year, just so everyone remembers.
Yeah, Knicks won 50 wins last year. Tommy has them at 54. Kevin, let's hear yours.
Okay, so I have the Knicks at 58 wins this year. I originally had them at 56 wins. That was before the Julius Randle trade, which, by the way, this turtle is named after him.
Yeah, okay, that's how you're going to refer to it, the Julius Randle trade?
Yeah, it's the Julius Randle trade in my mind. So they brought in Karl Anthony Towns. I didn't like it at first, but after some thinking and a lot of, angry feelings, I came around to the fact that I actually do like this trade. I do think the Knicks got a little bit better, but it's going to take time for them to see the results of it in the regular season, and that's why I only gave them 2 more wins. Just a quick note that if you've been paying attention, every single number that I've given on these episodes are even numbers, so everyone in all my teams are either finishing above or below 500. No 500 teams in my picks.
All right, Mongo, do you want an end or do you want me to end?
I'll let you in. These are your boys. I do want to talk a little bit more about the Daquan Jeffries trade. though, involving Minnesota, Charlotte, and New York.
That's exactly what this trade is. The Quan Jeffries trade.
The Dante DiVincenzo trade, if you will. Hey, listen. I love this trade. I got to go on record as saying I love that trade for the Knicks. I think, listen, talent-wise, you can look at their stats all you want, but the bottom line is Bridges obviously brings the defense, but he also does need his opportunities offensively. Randall, also a guy who needs the ball to be productive. He's gotten better at that the last couple of years playing with Brunson, but he's still an offensive stat stuffer at heart. Listen, Cat doesn't necessarily need to do that. In fact, Cat actually had less points last year than Randall did on average, but we know what he can do defensively. We know that even though he has some shortcomings defensively, he is a much-needed rim protector, especially with Mitchell Robinson out. So he does a better job of fitting in to this offense where more guys need the ball, while also providing more of a logical, filling in a spot that's more needed on defense. Not saying necessarily he's the perfect defensive solution, but he does fill a spot better. So I have
a balance. Like a very better balance than Randall at that spot. Would you say?
Exactly. They're a more balanced team now. I have them at 54 wins. I think anywhere in that mid-50s is a reasonable number. Again, to what I do the math, everybody. If the Sixers are playing injured the whole season and they go back a couple, if Boston's momentum, if they're slow getting out of the gate, if the Nets in Toronto completely fire sale, you get the idea. The Knicks, in theory, are actually the safest team in this division, which is a terrifying thought. I mean, Knicks and safe don't particularly go in a sentence together, but here we are in the wacky year that is 2024. So I'll put him at 54, and I feel, as a Knicks fan, I'm probably sleeping better than a fan of the other four teams in this division, leading up to the start of the NBA season.
All right. So let's show off the shirt we got here. Two-time champions down here.
Swagtastic.
Right here. Two-time champs. Now, granted, those championships were well before any of us were born.
This is true. 73 was the last championship. I was born in 84, and I was the oldest of this group.
I will say this.
1999.
I really felt the magic last year, and my heart was ripped out from those injuries. I really did. And I didn't say this to any of you guys because I didn't want to make you guys be like, oh, Kilroy's putting the who on this. I really did think that they had a good shot last year at making the championship, at the least, if not winning it all. The magic felt there, right? Like they were able to persevere through so much that I felt that it was going to happen. And then Mitchell Robinson got hurt, and then everyone else on the team got hurt.
Basically, no starter finished the season.
And it really tore me apart.
I'm not even a Knicks fan, and that was a heartbreaking way to see the Knicks go.
Yeah. So, again, I'm 35 years old, and I have watched the Knicks go to one NBA Finals and lose to the Spurs in the strike shortened. Two. You're right. My bad. Ignoring.
I was 94.
Because I remember 94 so well. I just said I'm 35.
That's like saying I remember 94.
Anyway, realistically, I only remember the 1999 one. Again, in 94, I was 5 years old.
The Spurs win.
94 was my first Knicks experience, so I kind of remember Starks building a house.
You're also 5 years older than me, so you were 10. Anyway, so, and that was during the strike shortened season. So the Knicks got in, but that anyway. So I was very hopeful from last year. I have the hope this year again. This team does seem better. I love this Karl-Anthony Towns trade. I really like the acquisition of Mikal Bridges. I think this team has potential to be the best team in the East. I don't think that they're going to be able to because just the way the Tibbs teams work, they're going to get beat up, and they won't rest players, right? Because that's just not how Tibbs works. But I still think that this team, I got them 54 wins. I think that's three of us have them at 54 wins. I like this team. I want to say 60 wins. I would love for them to win 60 games, but I also would rather them not win 60 games, be healthier going into the playoffs, and actually going home with a championship this year. I really want the Knicks to win a championship. And if you know what, championship or bust, I'll be sad. If they don't win a championship, I'm not going to not be a fan or anything like that, but I'm going to be very disappointed if they don't win it this year. I don't think that, or this season. Obviously, they can't win it this year. But
we know what you
This
meant.
calendar year, you mean?
yeah, I do think that this season the Knicks gives the Knicks their best shot since last year. And I know that's stupid sounding, but the way this team is constructed, I think that the Karl Anthony Towns trade, I actually think he'll fit in better quicker than we think. And so far in the preseason, he seems to be fitting in with this team. There seems to be good chemistry, and obviously, you know, he is disappointed that the Timberwolves moved on from him. I think he felt that he wanted to finish what he started there, and he actually started there. So that makes more sense than Kevin's upsetness that Julius Randle didn't finish with what he started with the Knicks. When, let's be honest, he was, you know, he was a leftover piece that the Knicks were like, I guess.
Did he
this is who
actually
we'll
start
take.
something? Because I don't think he did.
I mean, he didn't.
Listen,
Let's
he
be
wanted
honest.
to come to New York when no one else did. That's why
But
it was.
the Knicks didn't actually want him, right? The Knicks were like,
Yes.
we ran out of choices. Let's get Julius Randle and see if this, you know, at least, and at worst, they would have been exactly where they were, right? Like this season before they signed him. So that's why they took a flyer on him. And yeah, he's happy the Knicks took a flyer on him, but at the same time, you know, someone had to put stats up. And his inability to show up in the playoffs definitely was a detriment to the Knicks in terms of physically not being able to play in those games. And then also in the games he played, he struggled when he did play. So that's a bit of the Knicks are able to move on from that, which is nice. I'm not 100% sure on Karl Anthony Towns' stats in the playoffs, or not even necessarily his stats, but how he will work with this team in the playoffs. Because if he doesn't come up big in the playoffs, not necessarily he doesn't have to be big, right? Because he's not the big player anymore on the team, but like when Randall was for the Knicks. But I hope you
He
understand.
can't play poorly. Basically, he has to play very well. He has to play very well. It just might not reflect in like 35 points or something like that.
Right.
He just needs to play well for this team. That's what
Correct.
it is.
Yeah. So I really do like this team. I really want to say that the Knicks are going to win the championship this year. You'll have to turn into the superlatives episode to see who I have winning the championship. I want
to real quick just give an exercise for Celtic and Knick fans out there. If you're one of these angry fans that we want every last win, you know, what do you mean the Knicks are worse? What do you mean the Celtics are worse? Whatever it is. Quick little exercise here. Cleveland, Orlando, Pacers, Sixers, all separated by one game last year. Let's just for a minute, so that means it's at least believable that this could happen. Let's assume for a minute that 3 through 6 in the East in order turns out to be Cleveland, Indiana, Philadelphia, Orlando. You're telling me you wouldn't rather be the 2 seed and get the winner of Cleveland, Orlando versus being the 1 seed and get the winner of Pacers, Sixers? Like, to sit here at this point in the year and even say I'd want to be the 1 seed is a fairly ridiculous exercise. So I'm with you, Kilroy. I'd love to watch them go 81-1, but I'd also love for it to work itself out. A little bit of luck the way the Celtics had last year. They'd be healthy. They have a nice path. They'd be ready to go. They get some home games in the Garden, which is always electric. I'd love to be the 2 seed versus the 3 seed, at least get that one extra game in the Garden, if not be the 1 and always have home court. But to sit here and look at who, 3 through 6 are most likely going to be, factor in the Heat are always dangerous. They're going to be on one side of the bracket. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say as the Knicks, if I finish the year 5 games behind the Celtics, 9 games behind the Celtics, 11 games behind the Celtics, I don't care. If the 3 and the 6 are easier to beat than the 4 and the 5, give me the 2 every day. So, little bit of a mootness to this whole idea. I do think at the end of the day, though, I have the Knicks and Celtics, out in front of pretty much everyone else, kind of like they were last year.
It'll be interesting to see if that holds true toward the end of the season, if that scenario happens toward the end of the season, how the Knicks and the Celtics handle that last let's say week 2 weeks leading up to the seeding finality.
It was so close last year. It's almost impossible to do if it stays that close again. You need something like last year. It was obvious you wanted what was left of the Sixers. There were a couple just ravaged teams. I mean, you wanted what was left of the Knicks in the second round. So if everyone's healthy, I mean, they're all dangerous. Magic fans, Cavs fans, don't come after me. But you got to admit, based on if you factor in playoff experience as a good thing to have, there are clearly more dangerous teams in the East than others.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Thank you all so much. Oh, real quick. The Liberty are in the WNBA finals.
They're
playing against the Minnesota Lynx. So it's currently this will be airing way after this. But they're currently tied 1 game apiece. So by the time you guys air this, it's not going to be 1 apiece, but it is going to be a very fun WNBA finals. Next year they will be switching. Next year they're going to 7 games, I believe, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be
that will be
when this airs, by the way, it's going to be 2-1 Liberty, just so you know.
So we are all super stoked about that. Did I wear it yet? I may not have, but I have my Liberty shirt now, and I'm all pro Liberty. We got this here. New York.
Isn't Mongo
We're
in
gonna
Liberty
get
colors?
I am in Liberty colors.
You are. That's actually why he chose this outfit.
Yeah. I woke up this morning going, man, I hope Kilroy gives a shout out to the Liberty.
New York is coming away with the championship in basketball. Definitely
One way or another.
Yep. One way or the other.
Maybe even baseball.
Let's go.
We can talk about that on the baseball show. Come check us out. 3 on Lights Out. Thank you all so much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, comment down below your record prediction for the Atlantic. Take care, everyone.
Love you guys.
Take care.